Intrusive thoughts. What are they? Put it simply in terms we can better understand, those are the thoughts that consume us. The ones that we can't get away from, the ones that take over our lives and cause us so much pain and anxiety. We might not even be able to sleep or eat or function properly. I dealt with these for a very long time, and it wasn't until I went somewhere where the chaos or external stress was higher and all-consuming that I could feel at rest within my mind. So I sought that out because I thought that was the way to deal with intrusive thoughts. Hi, I'm Danny Caballero, and on this Mindful Minutes segment, we're going to talk about intrusive thoughts and how you can finally put them to rest. Welcome back to another great episode of Mindful Minutes with yours truly, Danny Caballero. Today I want to talk to you about intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts are different than, just your everyday worry. It's bigger than that. It's the thoughts that just seem to run crazy and control our everyday life. They stay in our mind consistently running and running and running until we sort of just can't deal with anything else. Oftentimes, they're the thoughts that ruin our days. Just makes us like we can't focus on anything. In fact, when we try to focus on anything, it usually explodes, and we have those days where just like nothing we do matters. It's just we can't get away from them. But that's not the truth. Reality is there is a way for us to regain our control over our thoughts. It's not easy, but with hard work and a little bit of focus and through facing our own fear, we can overcome these thoughts. So, in general, when we're thinking about intrusive thoughts, we're not, again, dealing with your normal run-of-the-mill things that we worry about. That I forget to pay that bill, that email gets sent out last night. No, these are the thoughts that really cut to our core values, really get into who we are, and really make us feel like we're not the best and we're not worthy, or we're not deserving of being in that relationship with that amazing person. And these thoughts just sort of just control our life day after day after day. And they kind of change our behavior. But we don't have to let them do that. We can overcome that by focusing on some basic things. Sleep. I know it's linked to everything. But if we address our sleep, chances are we're going to get that full restorative rest and be able to think clearly, not focus so much on the things that bother us. Next thing we have to look at is our stress. Now, there's a lot of talk with what's normal amount of stress, what's abnormal stress. Stress is a part of life. It's the way we react to stress that we really need to engage with and really focus on. And this can be a little harder for us, especially if we're still in the military, because we tend to operate in that realm of constant stress where we have to always be under the gun. But you don't have to go through this journey alone. In fact, some of the best help we can get for dealing with stress, dealing with sleep, and all the other things we'll talk about come from a therapist. And more on that later. So we talked about sleep, we talked about stress. What else can we do to help really pin down these intrusive thoughts? Well, let's get at the core. Find out what the real fear is. What are we really dealing with? If it's tied to productivity, is it our self-worth? What's really driving this fear that's really given us these intrusive thoughts? And once we identified that, well, we have to face it. We can't just sit there and continuously put our blinders on like we're going to white knuckle through this. We're not going to pay attention to what's really going on. Once we know the real root of the fear, we have to face it head on. We can't just ignore it, and we can't just put it in the back burner. And this is where a therapist comes in. Think of your therapist as your JTAC. Think of them as your guide into how to best employ the right munitions. You're the ground force commander. You know that you have to attack this fear, right? Well, you just don't have the tools. Maybe you need to sit down and talk with a therapist, aka your JTAC, to give you that insight as to how to go about attacking your fear, how to go about addressing it. Maybe it's just going through some basic cognitive behavioral therapy. Maybe it's going through and talking through these issues, talking through the fears. Whatever it is, don't be afraid of talking and engaging with a therapist. They're there to help you and guide you into understanding how to approach this and how to best utilize the tools you have to get over these intrusive thoughts. You're not by yourself in this. Again, try to make that link with a therapist as they're your JTAC, your guide in actually employing all these different tools into solving this greater, bigger problem. Intrusive thoughts won't go away unless you address the root cause, unless you sit down and look at the big picture, understanding what you're really going through. I know for me, there's been many years where I dealt with a lot of insecurities and dealt with a lot of fear in regards to relationships, self-worth, how I was, going through my life. Like, was I really on the right path? Was I doing the right things? And I wasn't able to really address any of the intrusive thoughts until I stopped and looked at my fear head on. And for me, it wasn't until I sat down with a therapist and really talked it through. I was really good at masking. I was really good at putting a Band-Aid or just putting blinders on and moving through life and white knuckling through the hard parts where the intrusive thoughts were just constantly running my life. In fact, it was almost easier when I was dealing with higher stress in a military environment, like a school or going through a deployment. Because when you're focused on those external factors, you're not really sitting down with yourself. And you're not really focused on those thoughts. You're not really giving yourself the time and space to really be alone, to really look at what really bothers you. And when you're really sitting there alone by yourself in your normal everyday life, not worrying about a firefight, not worrying about doing the right thing on a mission, not worried about passing this school or doing good in this graded stock or whatever it is that you're doing in a military training environment, that's when intrusive thoughts tend to really pop up. At least they did for me. And that's why I chased the constant need to be engaged with something else, something external, because taking those days or even a few hours to just be by myself, that gave way to a lot of intrusive thoughts, a lot of the pain I endured with just constantly focusing on the same thing over and over and over and over again. So if any of that resonates with you, if you've felt the same way or dealing with the same thing, just know that you're not alone. And the answers are often a lot closer to our reach than we think. All you have to do is be willing to be vulnerable and ask for help. There's tons of research out there, and you can find any local therapist in the local area or get on BetterHelp or get to the Cohen Network or any of those online tools that can help you connect with a therapist, or seek a therapist through your unit if you're still active duty. I know it's hard. I know it seems like there's so much to overcome. There really isn't. Now more than ever, it's safer and more secure to ask for help and get help. And if you're still having trouble finding those resources, head on over to securityhalt.com. Go to our resources page, and there's tons of resources there for you to get the help you need. All you have to know today and right now is that you're not alone. This will and can go away, and it just takes a little bit of time and effort. Intrusive thoughts are not going to ruin your life forever. They can go away and they can be dealt with, but it takes you facing the problem and facing your fear. You got to do it. I can't do it for you, and the therapist can't do it for you. You got to be able to sit down and understand what's at the root. And the best way to do it is to sit down with your local therapist, and get their help. Good luck. And if you need any help, reach out. Take care.